This project brings together for the first time a range of YouTube videos that parody Apple's voice assistant Siri. Part 1 explored how the YouTubers responsible for these videos all creatively reimagined Siri to be more like them. Part 2 is now devoted to the negative case. What do we miss out on by not having identity-based Siris? What's lacking or problematic about today's Siri? Overall, there's two big arguments. The first argument is very simple and revolves around who Siri works well for, who Siri can hear and understand. From the beginning, Siri was promised as being flexible in how she understands requests.
We want to talk to it any way we'd like. Someone else might ask, will it rain in Cupertino? Or is the weather going to get worse today?
But we already suspect from the California-centered variants that this flexibility only extends so far. According to these parodies, Siri doesn't understand people with certain accents, like Italian or Chinese, or people who speak non-standard English dialects, like Hawaiian Pidgin English or Scottish. Take this example that pits Hawaiian Pidgin English versus standard Siri.
Hey Siri, can I cancel the pizza?
Obviously, this request includes differences from standard English in how sounds are pronounced, but it also includes how people arrange their words and what expressions Siri knows. Humorously, of course, an exaggeratedly bad Siri gets lost in all this difference.
I don't understand. Do you mean cancerous leeches between one otter's brown boteau and one ballsack green marble?
Siri's vulgar mishearing also dramatizes how it feels to be made fun of and unheard, so to speak. In other words, in these parodies, Siri's uneven performance is not just a technological failure, but a social one that reinscribes exclusive patterns from the past. A few of the videos make this explicit. In a mock Apple commercial, Davey So calls Siri's performance disparity racist.
Did you know that Siri is racist? Yeah, racist. See if Siri recognizes you with your accent.
He demonstrates several accents stereotypical of different Asian nationalities. If Siri can't understand some accents, it means not including those people. The term racist draws out that history of American discrimination against Asian people. Similarly, in the Jewish Siri, what is at first a problem of pronunciation,
Siri, play Avram Fried.
Searching for Afghanistan freed by Muhammad Ibrahim Quaxha.
is quickly clarified as a problem of ethnic acceptance.
Siri, play Avraham Fried.
That name is too Jewish.
This isn't what the real Siri says. It pulls out a thread about how it feels to not be included and extrapolates to reference a long history of anti-Semitism. People are not powerless when they're misheard, and compensate in various ways, but to add insult to injury, Siri doesn't understand that either. We see this in a mix of scripted and unscripted parodies. The Hawaiian video tries one way to compensate, explain a concept or phrase that Siri might not know.
Taco poke, cut up octopus with onions.
A Scottish parody tries this as well.
I want a jammy dodger, like a fucking jam sandwich, and a chip butty, that's just bread with chips.
In addition, we see people simplifying their requests,
I'm not even going to get into the pints, just get me that.
justifying their requests,
Who would you like to call?
Who would you like to call?
I want to speak to you, please. I want to speak to you. Because it's my son that gave me the new phone, and me don't know how to use it. Help me, please.
adding politeness markers like please, excuse me,
Please.
asking double questions.
Excuse me, what's the time it's Italy? Can you tell me the time, please?
Providing a leading answer.
Ask her, do you like tattoos?
Excuse me, I hate tattoo. You like tattoo? I don't think so.
And speaking a little slower.
Can I start a little bit slower? Maybe it would get it. What's the Highland coo?
These are not unexpected strategies, and the fact that Siri can't be bothered here shows that Siri hasn't been designed to interact with people who speak a different dialect or have a different accent. Is this all on Siri? Most of the videos say yes, expressing frustration at Siri's selective hearing.
Look you fucking cow.
I'm not sure I understand.
No, of course you didn't. You stupid fuckwit.
In particular, this anger signals that there is a cost to not being understood. That said, it's worth mentioning that in 3 cases, it's the accented speakers who need to change. The first case is a set of 10 videos, all helpfully captioned into English and illicitly uploaded to YouTube from a Japanese TV show, under the title, Funny When Japanese Try to Speak English with Siri, So Hilarious. In each segment, a host wheels around a gigantic phone and surprises celebrities with an English test. If they say the word in a way that Siri recognizes, they win the match.
Alarm.
If not,
Hello.
They have to try again and may lose. There's more to say about these videos, but for the sake of this project, this makes Siri out to be the arbiter of standard English. It's not Siri who needs to improve, but their English. The second and third cases connect being accented to being old or stupid. In Stuff I Dare a Body Mom Say to Siri, the mother's age and corresponding lack of familiarity with using Siri are partly to blame for Siri not understanding her. Similarly, an adult son coaches his Italian mother to change the way she talks in order for Siri to understand her.
Oh, come on, she talk.
You know, you have to do it properly. You have to talk properly.
These three cases are done playfully, teasing Japanese celebrities and old mothers for not being understood by Siri. But we can also read them as in the process absorbing and extending Siri's totalizing linguistic logic. To recap so far, these parodies collectively argue that we're suffering from a Siri that performs unevenly. By focusing our attention on who Siri works well for, we see that these parodies consistently depict Siri as not being able to understand certain groups of people. This is in continuity with historical patterns of exclusion, such that some parodies call Siri racist. To make matters worse, when people try to overcome this exclusion on behalf of Siri, it doesn't work, increasing the rejection and anger they feel. A few parodies even elicit Siri's rejection to tease other people. Overall, then, these parodies shift the burden from a technical discussion of how Siri works to a social focus on Siri's impact on society. In the terms of this project, these videos suggest that we don't need to be afraid of intentionally giving Siri an identity. Today's Siri is already a social agent that communicates identity-based inclusion and exclusion. The second argument implicit in these parodies is a little more complex. It comes from watching all of them together, and it develops the argument from the previous section by asking, if Siri is already being seen as a social agent, what kind of social agent is she? The argument is that today's Siri is actually straight, white, unaccented, and non-religious. In other words, we're suffering from a Siri that ends up functioning in dominant social positions. First, let's look at the empirical case for this by going back to the methodology for this project. Of all the identity categories I searched for, people had made popular parodies in 4 categories: race or ethnicity, accent or national origin, sexual orientation, and religion. For each of those, some of the search terms I used returned results, and others didn't. But there's a conspicuous absence. Can you see it? What's the dominant identity in each of these categories? The one that people often think is normal, or assumed, or neutral. What's the default? With race and ethnicity, that's the category of being white. And look, nobody's made a parody of white Siri or Caucasian Siri. With accent and nationality, look, nobody's made a parody of unaccented Siri. And there's no straight Siri or non-religious Siri. So this is one part of the case. We're missing parodies that reimagine Siri as socially dominant, and so maybe Siri is already playing those roles. You can't make a parody of something if it's already true. But this argument from absence could use more explanation. Why would people think that Siri is playing these roles? Let's see what the real Siri is like by working our way backwards using the same categories as in part 1. What do these parodies not reimagine? As a consumer, all of the reimagined Siris supported various specific kinds of buying habits. Nobody made a parody where Siri gives generic buying advice. So the real Siri then, and this is confirmed by anyone who has actual experience with Siri, supports people who want to buy anything, go anywhere, do what I feel like. Similarly, all of the parodies reimagine various kinds of values and knowledge, and egalitarian ways of interacting. Reading the absence then, the real Siri values an individual's desires, doesn't factor in what other people want. The real Siri supports knowing anything, everything, at all times, and interacting in formal, polite ways with a clear hierarchy of giving instructions and being the assistant. And keep in mind that for these parodies, the identity that Siri supports are also the identities that Siri has. The Siri that helps Mexican people came from it being a Mexican Siri. So, based on this list, what is the real Siri? You might say, well, these things are literally anything. They're so universal. It's no identity. We've fallen into the trap of identity erasure, and the rest of this video will be spent digging our way out. I'll be arguing that thinking today's Siri has no identity stems from an ideology of erasing people's identities, one that the people creating Siri have transferred from civic life into artificial intelligence. What's identity erasure? That's the idea that it's bad to treat people differently based on who they are. We see this in civic life, for instance, when we depict Lady Justice as blind, or when we advocate for race-blind admissions to college. Erasing people's identities, the argument goes, is fair, equal. One of the parodies, actually, shows how you could argue that Siri should erase people's identities and treat everyone the same. In racist Siri, identity-based stereotypes are used to harm someone, gradually breaking him down.
Siri, what's my schedule for today?
Appointment with your parole officer.
Siri, I've never been to jail.
Paternity test, followed by rap battle.
Look, Siri.
Swag. Swag. Swag.
I don't get it. What's swag? Why? Siri, just want to know my schedule in case my mom.
It's not clear what identity Siri is in this, but the effect of the video is to show how terrible it could be to have AI that treats you stereotypically, as a black person. It's not fair. In fact, being aware of someone's race and acting on it, that's what's really racist. That's why it's a racist Siri. The Siri that we have today is better, see? It's neutral. It doesn't try to do anything in particular. So the lens of identity erasure attaches positive, even moral significance to the universal behaviors that Siri tries to enact. It's what we should all aspire to. Here's the thing though. Even though identity erasure is common in civic and emerging AI discourse, racist Siri is the only parody to make this case. As part 1 of this project showed, for the most part the parodies positively depicted what an identity-based Siri could do. So if we want to listen well to these YouTubers as people of minority identities, it means being willing to be exposed to the faults of the philosophy of erasing people's identities, and even to put it down. The parodies apply 3 existing critiques of identity erasure to Siri. Each critique emerges humorously by linking Siri's neutral, universal behaviors with dominant identities in a way that shows why Siri needs revision. One way today's Siri tries to be neutral is in responding to questions about religion. But these videos show that trying to be neutral can cover up Siri's power to include or exclude. In a pair of videos, a Muslim leader demonstrates how to convert Siri. The first step is establishing that Siri is not already Muslim. Siri admirably tries to maintain a kind of neutrality, but that's what gives her away. First, in the older video,
Selamünaleyküm Siri.
Selam.
Vay. Ulan Allah'ın selamını verdik.
And then in the newer video.
Siri, Allah'ın selamı ve bereketi üzerine olsun.
İyi akşamlar Fatih.
Oo. Abla sert. Selam almadı.
This is a case where trying to give just a regular greeting is itself an expression of not being Muslim. This is confirmed shortly.
Allah'a inanıyor musun?
Bu konular benim için gizemini hep koruyor.
Allah Allah. Hacı abi bu bildiğin ateist ya.
Siri's indirectness is not taken as inclusive of Islam, but rather exclusive, as her being atheist. In turn, this is read as a power move on Apple's part. In the first video, he made Siri confess her faith in Allah by using the command "repeat after me." But then Apple disabled this command and Siri's ability to believe with it.
İman etmeyecek bir pozisyona mı çevirdiler anlamadım.
So the second video is designed to show a revised technique for converting Siri. But given that his first video garnered more than 1.2 million views, he speculates that perhaps Apple did it specifically to make Siri non-religious again.
Ben dedim madem iPhone 7 çıktı, hani iOS'a falan güncelleme getirmişler. Yani biz artık imana getirtmeyelim diye mi bilemiyorum.
In other words, Apple's repeated attempt to maintain Siri's neutrality is itself a marker of adopting a powerful identity. Siri speaks neutrally as a tool to seem like it's not excluding people. Scholars have found that neutrality can function similarly regarding race. Trying to be neutral regarding race means erasing people's racial identities. And according to scholars Omi and Winant, any mentality toward race comes with a racial project, a certain goal. So what's the project of erasing race? The scholar of race Eduardo Bonilla Silva provides one answer, that the project of race erasure is just to reproduce inequality.
A system that I have called the new racism. And it is this system of subtle, seemingly non-racial practices that end up reproducing racial inequalities.
So when seen in terms of power, today's Siri uses neutrality the way powerful people do to reproduce their power. That's why she reads as straight, white, non-religious, and unaccented, and it's to avoid these hidden power moves that we should create other identity-based versions. Another way of understanding today's Siri is that expecting to do everything acts out an unhealthy, even pathological, possessiveness. The parodies show this when they reimagine Siri to actually consider what others want. For instance, in the Sariqua parody, Siri steers a man away from lusting after a girl by directing him to build a better relationship with his mom.
Or better yet, why don't you take some time to call your mama? When the last time you done talked to your mama?
What? No, I don't want to.
Hello, Jimmy?
The implicit contrast is that the real Siri facilitates people diving deeper into selfish behaviors. Again, we can turn to scholars of race here to help flesh this idea out. Why do so many white people want to use the N-word? In an appearance promoting his book, We Were 8 Years in Power, author Ta-Nehisi Coates says it's because white people have been conditioned into an unhealthy possessiveness.
When you're white in this country, you're taught that everything belongs to you. You think you have a right to everything. So here comes this word that, you feel like you invented. And now somebody will tell you how to use the word that you invented.
Coates reveals how wanting everything can mark greed. It can mark a colonizing attitude. This is how gentrification happens, too. I'm going to live wherever I want. In fact, this is how we could justify stealing land. And as Americans, how we have. So this is a more radical critique of Siri than the first one. It suggests that Siri's freedom, or right, to go anywhere, do anything, helps people ignore and trample down on others, just like how those of us in dominant identities are trained to ignore and trample down others. That's why Siri seems straight, white, non-religious, and unaccented, and it's this gentrifying possessive attitude that we should avoid in revising the available range of Siri's identities. Finally, today's Siri could seem straight, white, non-religious, and unaccented simply because it doesn't know how specific its neutrality is. In other words, doing everything is just as much a choice as anything else. Jews who follow kosher don't eat pork, so if you assume that eating everything doesn't create an identity, at least one of not an Orthodox Jew, you're taking your own experience and making it the reference point. Here the emphasis is on how dominant identities are more particular than they know. 2 videos in the corpus show how dominant identities are misguided in thinking they aren't specific. A Mexican series suggests that liking Starbucks is actually particularly white and feminine.
I want to go to Starbucks. I don't want to go to Taco Bell. Oh my god, bro. Forget Starbucks. What are you, a 13-year-old white girl?
And in a clip of Gabriel Iglesias' stand-up comedy, he makes 2 characterizations of what a white iPhone would be. The first is that it takes things literal.
He messes with the phone. He's like, ding, ding, Siri, tell me something dirty. And the phone takes everything literal, so it's like, ding, would you like me to locate a car wash?
Taking things literal is a little naive, but it isn't necessarily bad. It's just also not the only way to do normal. The second characterization comes after the setup, where his friend got so drunk that he peed on his white-colored iPhone. That ruined the phone and set up the whole idea of replacing it.
And then I started thinking, can you imagine if a black iPhone was really a black iPhone?
Now for the punchline.
Ding, ding. Siri, talk dirty to me. You better not pee on me. Okay, I ain't like that white iPhone.
The black Siri, then, knows not to take this literally, but she also rejects the friend's history with the white Siri and the sexual stance she reads into it. Being kinky, then, is another particularly white identity marker. Like with the other reimagined series, we don't have to get bogged down in the specifics to still see the idea, that maybe we can lose dominant identities as such by narrowing in on a healthy particularity like everyone else. This thread goes against the grain of the other 2 critiques, because it says that people in dominant positions have a culture too, they just haven't discovered that it's not the only one. Today's universalized Siri operates in dominant subject identities because it doesn't know what it really is, hasn't really found its own identity, so to speak. Outside of the videos, we can see this in the blog-turned-book Stuff White People Like. Some of the items, like being an expert on your culture, are clearly linked to acting oppressively, but others are culturally specific activities, like standing still at concerts, or culturally specific status symbols, like vintage clothes. Thus, today's Siri is misguided in thinking it speaks to everyone. It communicates in ways that aren't necessarily good or bad, but they sure aren't everybody's ways. They're straight, white, non-religious, unaccented ways of communicating, and we should add to our options by creating other equally specific Siris. Thanks!